Any of those viewers at home?
You're much less motivated to say that these days.
Police search warrant! That is what you hear when a police officer or law enforcement officer comes to your home because they either have a warrant or they don't have a warrant. And that is what happens with the Patriot Act. We have given more expanded government powers to law enforcement so that they can search not only U.S. civilians, but anybody, immigrants as well. We're talking today about terrorists, which this side did not define. So who is a terrorist? We need to know that. And what is the definition for locking them up? What is the definition of privacy? We did not hear a definition of that. And we think that they should be defining that. Let's talk about that. There's a few things that I want to refute first, and then I'm going to go over the types of privacy that we've lost under the Patriot Act and how life and liberty has related and the loss of that, which is a a basic foundation of what this country was based on. So the first side comes up here and talks to you about how terrorists don't commit crimes until they commit crimes. Okay, let's say that again. Terrorists don't commit crimes until they commit crimes. Okay, so they're talking about maybe jihadists, that, okay, the few percent of actual terrorists, right? But what about everyone else that is being locked up under this dragnet? What about the innocent people that are being locked up because law enforcement got it wrong? Okay, we mentioned some court cases earlier, and there's a lot of cases that the government has got it wrong. So we're giving up this, a lot of constitutional rights to do that for people we don't know who are terrorists to begin with. So the other side talked about people. You said we're not losing our rights and snipping away. I don't agree with that. We talked about economics. You know what the biggest economic drain on this country is high crime areas. And so this side's proposal would be to have those people in those high crime areas give up their privacy so we can get more law enforcement in there and more arrests and more convictions and all that. How about we agree that we should have our privacy, which is the current, which was pre-Patriot Act. Additional tools for law enforcement. That was another thing they brought up. And they talked about drug trafficking. I don't know. Did Al-Qaeda, were they drug runners before? I didn't know if they were like smoking weed and bringing in money. No, they weren't. So I don't know how the drug trade somehow now all these people are jihadist terrorists trying to blow up the World Trade Center. I'm going to continue. And they're talking about searching help and how this isn't going to affect 300 million of our Americans. Yes, it will, absolutely, because we've all given up aspects of our privacy under this expansive legislation. I'll take that point.
How many terrorist activities have been foiled through the Patriot Act?
Well, we'd like to hear that from your side because you're the one that's proposing the expansion and the loss of privacy. So please tell us. Because last week, there was a man that murdered 14 of his comrades on the Army base in Texas. And somehow this Patriot Act is supposed to be preventing something on our borders, in our borders, right? I mean, that's a domestic terrorist. That is the new definition, in-house domestic terrorist, and he killed 14 people on our soil while using his email, while publicly talking about jihad. So why don't we hear that from you? Let me get into my point about how this goes against the U.S. Constitution. This is un-American, okay? So let's talk about privacy. We've had indefinite detentions of Americans and others. In Oregon, where I come from, a man named Brandon Mayfield was locked up because his fingerprints were found on a bomb in Madrid, Spain, when they blew up the Madrid, Spain railway system. Well, guess what? He was in Madrid, and he didn't have anything to do with the bombing. But because they were able to get his fingerprints, somehow they were able to tie it to Spain, and they arrested him wrongly. And this is what happens under the Patriot Act. You have expanded government, and more people are getting locked up, and more people are getting up locked wrongly. So let me tell you how that relates to the U.S. Constitution, and how that's going to hurt us. Well, we have a Fourth Amendment, right? Which is the right to undue search and seizure, right? But somehow this side wants to go in and expand government's power so that they can read your emails, they can tap your phones, they can look in your house. And guess what? A lot of these have already been thrown out. Courts, as my partner mentioned earlier, have already thrown out many of these court cases. So also the 9th and the 10th Amendment are absolutely supporting our case. So you have a few constitutional amendments, you have case law, court precedents, where this supports our case. And let's look at how practically what we've given up. We have informational technology, right? They're gathering people's feelings, their beliefs, where and when they've been. Okay? That's informational technology. What about your financial privacy? Do you ever? They're taking away your ability to do whatever you want with your money. And internet privacy. They're a third party looking through your emails and reading your emails, storing them. What about your medical privacy? Okay, all of these cases, the government has now expanded power. I don't know how we need to know terrorists or suspected terrorists. We don't know yet who the terrorists are. But I don't know how they need your medical privacy or how they need to read your emails. On the status quo beforehand, we were able to do it effectively. It's unconstitutional. You've lost your physical privacy, you've lost your informational privacy, you've lost many of your privacies, and we don't believe that it not only is working, but it is also not right, and that's why you'll vote with us today.